Great. Thank you, John. A little bit about me again. My name is Sean Thomas. I am a senior information security analyst at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, where I am proud to have been an employee for the past 19 and a half years. I've got over a quarter century experience in IT in various roles. I actually started on the help desk, taking those calls from the users and going out and fixing their computers. Excuse me. And I've worked in a bunch of different roles, and I feel like that background really makes me a stronger security practitioner. In my current role as the senior analyst on the security team at the university, my focus is very much on cyber defense and user awareness. That's really one of my primary responsibilities, as John and I were just discussing. I'm also an instructor for Sec 301 with SANS, the Introduction to Cybersecurity course, and I hope you enjoy this talk. I want to start a little bit immediately right with a definition. What is social engineering? We talk about this topic all the time. And I think it's important that we have a little bit of a foundation. I have two definitions here on the screen. I'm not going to read them. These come from NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technologies. But it really comes down to someone trying to trick somebody else into giving up something of value. It could be a password. It could be an iTunes gift card number. It could be transferring large amounts of funds. We've heard of all of these things happening in the real world, and it's all different aspects of social engineering, tricking one human into doing something for the benefit of another human, which is not in the best interest of that first person. And there are so many different aspects of social engineering. We've seen, as with John's terrifying presentation this morning, the whole aspect of phishing. But there's so many other ways about it. We could do it in person. We can do phone calls. How many of you have heard of that person that received a phone call pretending to be from their cable company or their electric company saying, we can give you a better rate if you go to the store and buy $500 worth of iTunes gift cards and then read us the numbers? I unfortunately know personally people who have fallen for those social engineering phone calls, those phishing attacks. And it is heart-wrenching when some, especially an older person, goes and drains their life savings in the hopes of getting some benefit, which is just absolutely a scam. And it's not just limited to phone calls. SMS text messages, receiving that message on your phone, click this link to confirm your activity with your bank, but it's not your bank sending you that message, and that short URL is not really the bank. This is very applicable at the personal level, but at the organizational level, it can get exponentially worse. This is where we bring in the concept of pretexting and business email compromise. Consider pretexting to be that imagined scenario that is fairly plausible, but has that kernel of falsehood in it, where the attacker is maybe pressuring the victim to act, or even worse, leveraging the victim to do the attacker's bidding. These types of attacks are all too common and all too damaging for those companies. We'll get into that a little more as we move through the presentation. A couple of more concepts of social engineering, MFA attacks, with John brilliantly demonstrated those pass-through attacks for authentication. Those are not the only ones that we see, but it also can come into social media. Does your organization have social media presence that could be leveraged by an attacker, either through direct messaging your employees or making a fake version of your social media presence to try to trick your potential customers and or giving you a black eye. So you need to look at what threats like these could impact your organization. Where could your organization fall victim to some of these types of attacks? And the sad reality is, it doesn't matter how big or small your organization can be a target and definitely is susceptible to this risk. Even worse, your organization may not even be the ultimate target that the attacker is going after. You might just be a stepping stone. We can go back over a decade and think about the massive attack against Target. the retailer that as a target did not get initially compromised by a direct attack against them, rather through an attack against one of their vendors. So how do we evaluate the risks to your organization? The very first step that you have to do is understand your organization. You need to know about what makes your organization tick. Now, a lot of us in IT, we are heads down looking at our computers, looking at our consoles, looking at our systems. We're seeing all of this logs and data and analytics flying across our screens. We need to take a step back and think about the larger picture. Do you understand who the people in your organization are? Are they free spirits? Are they adversarial? Are they helpful? Are they rule followers? Do you have different subsets of people in your organization? At the university, there's a very different types of people. We have students, we have faculty, we have staff members that are performing all of these different types of roles. We need to understand how those people work within the organization and what the impact of one or more of them being compromised can do and where that can lead within our organization. In addition to knowing our people, we need to know our business processes. And that can be a challenge for us as well. Which business processes are standardized, are routine, or are niche? In addition to that, we need to look at those processes and determine and evaluate which ones involve people, and especially where can an attacker take advantage of those processes. Now, like I said, these processes can be big or they can be small. They could be as big as major financial transactions, huge funds transfers from your organization to another, or they could be very small. Something even as small as a single user, a single employee logging into the HR self-service portal and updating their payroll direct deposit. Does that have a huge impact financially on the organization? Not really. Does it have a huge impact on that one employee? Absolutely. So we need to understand all of these different aspects and where the human element in those processes can be taken advantage of. So I have a simple flow chart here that I've built. It's designed to help you understand where your risks might exist, specifically with that involvement of the human. And it's a very simple because it really just has one answer. Is there a human involved? Yes. Okay, you are at risk. Okay, that's a little bit tongue in cheek, and it is really just one little perspective of it, but there is a massive kernel of truth in this. When there is a human involved in a process, there is always the chance that that human can be taken advantage of. So let's reframe that question to evaluate where our risks might exist. And we can start that by trying to determine which processes, which business processes are not fully automated. Do you have something that a human initiates or that a human needs to confirm? The human initiated processes, if it's just the human goes into the system, makes the change, and then it happens, well, if there's no validation on that, that could be ripe for the attacker to take advantage of. Where are processes that involve a human, where a human is required to take a step midstream? Your risk factor may be different. This would be ideally situated if there's an automated process that a human needs to go in and confirm. Well, ask yourself, ask your organization, what starts that process? That automated process, is it initiated by something, some threshold, whatever? You need to take that step, look at your organization's processes, and determine what is that trigger. Then, when the human is involved, what impact does that human have? And more specifically, how can an attacker take advantage of that human element, either for the human initiated or the human confirmed process? Then look and ask that hard question. Can we detect the suspicious activity? Do we have a process in place? Do we have a system or an alerting in place to identify suspicious activity? As John was talking about in his talk earlier, that user login, they're traditionally logging in from on your organizations, in your organization's buildings, or if you're a remote employee, they're logging in typically from their home. Do you have the ability to detect when that user logs in from somewhere abnormal? Those atypical events need to be looked at, especially when tied to a human process. And then ask yourself, do you have mitigating controls in place? Can you stop that process from moving through to completion? Going back to that scenario of the payroll direct deposit change, your employee logs into the HR system and updates their bank routing information. That happens a lot. Somebody decides they want to divert part of their paycheck into a savings account. Good on them. Is it their savings account? They get a new bank. They change from one bank to another. So now all of their money is going to this new bank. Is that really their bank? One of the things that we did at the university is we actually took a step back from full automation and introduced another human check to this process because we saw peer institutions falling victim to account takeover. An attacker phished the user or got their password, was able to intercept that MFA and log in as the employee and make that payroll change. We decided at an organizational level that there was too much risk associated with that, and we implemented a manual mitigating control. Every day, our payroll office gets a report from the system of every change to the direct deposits that were made. And then someone in the payroll office validates each of those changes, often by reaching out to the employee directly and confirming, did you make this change? Yes, that creates a little extra work. But our organization's leadership determined that that was an important thing. The risk was too great for us to impact our employees' possibility of getting their payroll changed, of not getting their paycheck. So we accepted the additional cost of having to do that manual check. So, what are some things that attackers can do? Well, some simple things, like we've mentioned earlier, basic phishing. Now, at this point, I'm not talking about those really advanced techniques that John was talking about. I'm talking about the mass email that's trying to throw out the biggest net possible to suck in a few responses. The basic uh, scam emails that we see all the time. That's a simple technique. Another one that we see is the spoof the help desk attack. This would be you, the employee, receiving a phone call. That phone call could be, "Hi, I'm calling from Microsoft and your Windows has a problem. Please go to this website and help me take control of your computer so I can fix this problem." Is Microsoft ever going to call one of your employees to fix a problem? No. But is someone in your IT department ever going to call a member of your organization because of an issue? Maybe. So you need to make sure your people are aware of this. Another scenario is the trick the help desk. This time, an attacker is calling the help desk directly, pretending to be one of your employees. "Hi, help desk. This is Sean, and I forgot my password. Can you reset it for me? Does this happen? Absolutely. Has it happened to us? Yes. So we need to implement mitigating controls, have some type of a challenge response. Or what we do is we actually do video verification. If somebody needs their password reset, you need to turn on your camera and show an ID, a photo ID on camera to prove to the person at the help desk that you are who you say you are. And then and only then will that password get changed. Other types of simple social engineering would be drive-by scareware. This is technology based where you go to a website that has been compromised by an attacker and that pops up a dialogue, a warning, maybe something that looks like a legitimate prompt in your operating system to do something, or it could be something scary. It might look like there's ransomware and it might look like a ransom page. Click this to unlock your machine or pay us Bitcoin, but there's no malware actually on the machine. It's just a pop-up. But this doesn't even need to be a technical level. It could be physical. In the physical world, an attacker might try to gain access to your building by just following somebody in. The idea of tailgating or piggybacking. The benefits from physical access are immeasurable for an attacker if they are going to try to infiltrate your organization. Maybe someone dresses up. They put on a brown short sleeve button down shirt, some brown shorts, brown socks, and brown shoes, brown work boots, carry a large box and a clipboard, and walk up to the entrance of the building, knock on the door with the elbow. Hey, can you let me in? I'm the new driver. Where's the mailroom? I haven't been on this route before. Are you or are your people going to direct that delivery person where they need to go to drop off that package? Are you going to escort them? You don't even necessarily need to have that yellow logo on the screen, on their shirt that starts with a U and has PS after it. No, this type of attack is all too easy to emulate. To let somebody in, and once they're in, if they have a few moments unsupervised, there's no telling what they might inject into your environment. Plug something into the network, plug something into a computer, walk out of the building, they have remote access to your environment now. That is a little more advanced, but not even as advanced as it can get. John mentioned the idea of taking over an account with an established vendor, or the attacker can impersonate a vendor. It's all too easy to determine vendors that you work with. Why? Because vendors like to advertise who they work with on their website. It is not uncommon for third-party companies to say, we are proud provider of services to your company and a dozen other companies that are recognizable names. If an attacker is going after you and they see that, they can then glean information about that third party and about you and try to impersonate them for your harm. Another attack that we've seen, in fact, we saw one recently with Ferrari, is the deep fake impersonation of the CEO. A member of senior leadership at Ferrari was receiving messages back and forth from what looked like their CEO, and then there was the phone call. The phone call sounded like the CEO, but that senior leader was listening to that call and recognized a little something about the vocal inflection. It sounded a little too mechanical, and that fired off that neuron in their brain that said something's not right. So he paused the conversation and said, I need to verify you. What was the title of the book you recommended to me a few days ago? At that point, the attacker knew they were made and hung up the phone. If that leader hadn't had the awareness and the chutzpah to challenge their boss, it could have gone very poorly for that company. For Ferrari, it could have been horrible. But at a personal level, deep faking of a loved one is another thing that could be catastrophic for someone personally or at the organization. If an attacker can emulate your child, your grandchild, your spouse, your parent on a call, maybe they make it sound like it's a thunderstorm and they add such emotion to the call. I just was in an accident. I'm on the side of the road. It's raining. I can't pay the tow truck driver to get me back into town. I just need your credit card. Are you going to fall for that? Would your employee give up sensitive information in a situation like that? When we talked about MFA fraud, sophisticated phishing, and the like, these types of attacks, as you know, there's a wide ranging scale of levels of sophistication. We could go from that basic phishing all the way to the super sophisticated, terrifying things that John talked about this morning. So what can we do about it? Well, the very first thing we need to do is leverage our humans. Our humans, the employees of our organization, are very good at identifying things that just don't seem right. That little bit of gut instinct, we need to encourage them to be those human sensors. Train our employees, train our people to report suspicious things. Forward that email to the help desk, forward it to the security team, report that suspicious phone call, that unusual voicemail or text message to security. Utilize a tool to automatically do that from a one-click button in your email client. There's a lot of third-party utilities that can help with that, where it not just forwards the email, but bundles it up so you get the headers so that you can do analysis. Train your people to use those tools and techniques to help you become aware of what is going on in your environment and what is targeting your environment. One important thing that I think is critical, though, is to never downplay what they report. You might be tempted to dismiss an email that is just a Joe's Crab Shack coupon, or that one guy who always reports every single internal company announcement email. You never want to do that. Why? Because they are engaged. They are using these techniques to let you know of something that they don't feel is right. You use those reports, and sure, if it's a Joe's Crab Shack coupon, or if it is one of those emails from HR saying, hey, reminder, there's a holiday coming up, take that as an opportunity to have a little brief call with that employee to highlight how they could have told that that email was legitimate, but encourage them to keep up the good work. Use this information then to respond to those threats. When you get a reported phish, use your tools to determine scope. Did it just go to that one user? Did it go to 1,000 users, 100,000 users? If you're able, and you are able to identify that it is a legitimate phish, maybe your remediation step is to remove that email from everybody's mailbox and then go into that response mode and use your other tools to determine, did somebody click that link? Did anybody open that attachment? Leverage what knowledge you have about your environment to respond. Additionally, we want to use this information to inform our awareness training. Is our organization consistently targeted in a certain way? Do we get phishing emails of a certain type? Do we get phone-based attacks? Do we have vendor management issues where we have at-risk vendors or impersonation thereof? Leverage that knowledge to improve the awareness training of our people. Highlight those threats so that our people are aware of them and can respond accordingly. So the billion-dollar question is, can we stop social engineering? Alas, no. Social engineering is a tale as old as time. From the very first time some early human decided they wanted to trick another for some ill-gotten gain, through today and definitely on into tomorrow, social engineering is not going away. The better question is, can we defeat social engineering? Now, this really comes down to our humans. Success and or failure is all down to whether our humans are able to filter through the chaff to get at the kernel of truth. But we have to remember, no one is perfect. Failure's always a possibility. We are, after all, just human, and humans make mistakes. I encourage you not to punish those who fall for things like this. Use them as opportunities to learn yourself about where your detective and protective measures may have failed, but also how you can change your awareness training to improve the likelihood of success with your humans. Train to those identified risks. If you're able, simulate them. You see a fish come in that looks kind of tricky, looks like it might succeed. Well, use a tool to simulate that. Send a version of that email that you create to your people as both a training opportunity to increase awareness, teach them if they fail, but also to gain metrics about how people in your organization respond to those types of attacks. Deploy those robust detections. Look at what tools you have in your toolkit. See if you can tweak them to improve the likelihood of detections. Look for those anomalies. Try out those links in the emails. Detonate those attachments before they hit your users. Now, we know that that's not always successful, but the greater we can do at this, the more we can add into those detective techniques, the better we'll be. But we always must be prepared to respond, because it's not a question of if, it's just a matter of when something will get through our detection, our defenses, and succeed. So in summary, in order to identify where your organization's risks exist, you need to learn about those processes, understand the roles people play in those processes, and train your people specifically around those areas which are of risk to your organization. Implement those detective capabilities, and by all means, leverage your human sensors. Utilize them as those canaries in the coal mine to help you become aware of what is coming into your environment, those threats that you may not have thought about, and then use that to further improve your defenses and your response techniques. Thank you very much. A lot more wonderful talks coming up, and I'm really excited to hear some of these that are coming later this afternoon. Again, I'm in Eastern time zone, so definitely afternoon for me. Who knows what time zone you're in? I saw some amazing people, locations flying across the chat this morning.
Yeah, awesome stuff. Thank you, Sean. Yeah, this is one thing that is also deeply scary to me when you combine it with the capabilities of modern AI. And
Absolutely.
when I say that, I'm talking about something I saw last August that was terrifying, and let alone what it could be right now, right? And what I'm referring to there, the same guy I mentioned earlier that was deepfaking Taylor Swift and all that, he actually ran a AI powered social engineering bot at the DEF CON Social Engineering Village. I don't know if you heard anything about that, but um, was able to talk people with no input to the AI after it started out of 17 of the flags, and humans only got 12.
Wow.
And it was just absolutely astounding that that sort of thing is possible, right? That really, really good voice models, um, some carefully crafted social engineering tactics used to explain away some of the oddities of AI. Like they started the conversation with, "Hey, just so you know, the phone's a little weird today. So if I sound odd, this and that." Like they were explaining away the stuff that might otherwise clue someone in, like the Ferrari example you gave. And when you put all that together in the right combination, right? Like AI can make a lot of these phone calls now, aside from the people behind some of this. So we are in a crazy world. And I also mentioned, with the deepfake software I was talking about earlier, that will do real time voice translation as well. And so it's like the user awareness training now is going to have to involve, like, I don't know, are we all going to have secret passwords we talk about, with each other out of band and then verify as we start meetings? That's
That
something real to think about, right? Like, I have a word that I have agreed upon with my family because I'm like, hey, I got a podcast. Someone could clone my voice so easily. Like, if you ever doubt it's me, bring up the word, right? And so no one will ever know that, but you might have to go there once this gets completely indistinguishable.
that is definitely something that I encourage people to do, especially with your loved ones. For that deep fake scenario that I gave, have not just a word, but a challenge response that is
Yes.
actually nonsensical. Ask the person, it's raining, but what color's the sky? And the response is, but the puppy ran across the road, or something like that. That is a key to know you're really talking to the person.
Yeah. Yep. And thinking about, if you get into how you build some of these AI apps, right? Like obviously an LLM is going to answer a lot of things beyond what the actual person would be able to answer and do. So there are tests we can cook up to see if we're talking to AI or not, and ways to expose them. But you got to think of that stuff ahead of time. We're going to be
Absolutely.
in that world soon, if not already. So yeah, crazy stuff and very enlightening presentation. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.